If you've ever been wakeboarding before, you know that there are many different types of wakeboards with different types of designs on the bottom. And all those designs have a very important purpose. And they actually help the wakeboarder turn, jump, land, different things like that. And so I'll be talking about the designs of wakeboards and how they affect the board in different ways. There are 4 main points of design on the wakeboard. There's the, well actually, first I'll be discussing the main points, the length, width, the rocker, and the fin design. And as you see here, there they are right here. And a lot of people wonder if the weight is a factor. It's not really that big of a factor because, I mean, it really all depends on the weight of the rider. But all that's according to wakeeffects.com. Now let's talk about the length of the board. The length is very important because it causes the board to react in different ways. The longer the board, it gives the rider like a smooth edge, and it spins and you flip a little bit slower. But the shorter the board, and like the further apart your feet are, it allows you to spin, jump, and flip a lot faster than you normally would, just because the board isn't that big and isn't dragging pretty much through the air. But like I said, the shorter the board, the faster you spin, flip. And edging, if you don't know, is when you come out to the way, or you edge out before you edge in, and before like you do a trick. And edging, it makes it smoother for when you're leaning back. You won't like fall as easy, and it grabs the water easier. So it's a straight line straight to the weight. And the width is another important factor. The 3 main points of the board are the tip, the waist, and the tail. The tip is obviously the nose, and the tail is obviously the tail end of the board, and then the width is the thick center part of it. And it doesn't really, whoa. Yeah, all right. The tip and the tail are always going to be the same width. They're not going to change. If the tip is narrow, then the tail's going to be narrow. If the tip is wider, then the tail's going to be wider. But so those two are always going to be the same because like the board, you often like switch sides, and like both sides have to be similar for exactly the same for it to work properly. A narrow tip lets the board sit deeper in the water, and it's allowing you to edge towards the wake faster because the board's already like sunk in the water, and it just cuts through the water a lot easier than if it was sitting on top of it or floating a little bit more. And a wider tip and tail, like I said, sits like a little bit more above the water, giving it like a smoother ride, more like it's gliding on the water more than like riding through it. And I got all this information at wakeworld.com, and they have a bunch of forums on there. You can just ask any question, and someone will have an answer for it. And the next main design point of a wakeboard is called the rocker. And basically all that is when you set the board down on like the ground or on a table, it's the curve that you see. And there are two main types of rockers. There's one called a stage 3 rocker, the other one's called a continuous rocker. And if you see here on the stage 3, it's flat in the center, and then once it gets to the tail and the tip, it curves up a little bit. And what that does, it creates the board like to have more pop for whenever you hit the wake. You get more vertical lift more than like horizontal distance. And on the continuous, that's just like one big continuous arc. There's no change in the degree or anything. And they actually recently combined the two together. It's called a stage 3 continuance. It's kind of just a mixture of the two. It's a little bit, it's still curved on the bottom, but the tip and tail curve up a little bit more. It's just for, I don't know, riders who like a little bit more. This is for more of an aggressive rider who like to cut out and move real quick through the water, and this is for more of the inexperienced beginner rider. And like I said, the stage 3 has a flat bottom, and the tip and tail curving upwards, similar to like a skateboard does, just like flat and then tips up. And the stage 3 is actually slower because of the way the tail angles up when you're riding all your weight's on your back legs, and that causes like it to drag through the water more than just glide on it. But it's a lot better for getting more air, so you can do more variations of tricks, more spins, more flips. Like I said, you get more vertical lift off that. And the continuous rocker is just the one continuous arc in the board. And on the continuous rocker, you move more like quickly through the water, just because it's just a continuous arc and there's nothing really dragging through the water besides like the fins. But you don't get as much vertical pop due to you don't have the tips curving up, and also an advantage to that board is you go more outward more than upward. So some tricks call for you to go more out across the wake more than up. And now I'm going to be talking about the fins and the fin placement. Fins are pretty important when you're wakeboarding because they help you stay aligned. They help the board stay in a straight line. Because if you've ever ridden a board without fins, it's really like squirrely. You move around a lot. It literally feels like you're just like on the water, and wherever the boat goes, you just slide to. And they help you just stay in the line and not move around and keep you stable. But the fins create channels for the water to flow through underneath the board, and that's what keeps the board going in a straight line. And like I said, channels, it gives it a smoother feel in the ride, just because you're not swirling around, the board's not moving in places you don't want it to go. It's staying in the exact spot you need it to be. And the more fins, the more channels for the water to flow through, they're making a more aggressive ride, because the more fins you have, you can stay in a straight line easier, like I said, but that also creates an aggressive ride, because if you lean any way, the board will go that way immediately, just because the water is traveling underneath the board through these fins, and as soon as you change direction, the water changes direction, causing the board to move that way. Usually on entry-level boards for beginners, their boards usually don't have any molded fins. They just have a single fin on the tip and the tail, and that's just to keep them going in a straight line, because they're obviously beginners and they're not that good at it, and they just need some type of stability just to make it that much easier for them to learn. Like it says down here, it creates just like a basic ride. It's not really an aggressive ride, but I don't know, just as an easy going. And then there's things called molded fins, which they just invented or created recently. And if you see right here, these fins down here in the center are all they do is screw in through the top of the board. But these fins running along the side rails, the board is actually made and molded with those in there. And so usually for more experienced riders, they have those for more control over the board. And a lot of people actually take out the center fins just because, I don't know, it gives you more loose ride. Like I said, it gets a little like squirrely or whatever. But when you have the molded fins in there without the center fins, it gives them a quicker response time. Like, so as soon as you tilt or lean, the board's automatically going that way. And well, that's all my slideshow. But in conclusion, now that we all know about how the wakeboard, how the length, the width affect the board's ability to spin as well as flip and stay in the line. The board's rocker as well has the fins normally designed for different riding types, known as aggressive and non-aggressive riding. The next time you're out on the lake and somebody's wakeboarding, I advise you to take a look at their board, and you'll now know what I'm talking about, and you can point out to the rider what exactly their board is doing for them.
Thanks, Chris.